Welcome back to the Ultimate 180, where you flip what you think you know upside down so you can finally make lasting change and create a life you actually love. In today's episode, I am asking a big question. Why should you even bother changing your life? I mean, seriously, change is really hard. It takes energy, focus, and sometimes everything you got. So what's the point? You don't want just a new job, a new relationship, a healthier body. I would bet that what you really want is a life that finally feels like it's yours because you deserve it. So you've lost motivation to change. Stay tuned for this eye-opening episode where I'll uncover the secret that reconnects you to the one thing that makes it all worth it. So let's get started as we navigate change together, 1 degree at a time. Let's do this. Hey, it's Christina Walker, and thanks for joining me today at the Ultimate 180. Here's the truth. No matter what kind of change you're craving, more money, better health, deeper relationships, it all comes down to one thing: joy. And I don't mean temporary happiness, not the fleeting emotion of happiness. No, I'm talking about real joy, that deep, unshakable kind, that feels like peace in your soul, the kind that you can live in. Let's talk about what happens when you haven't fully realized yet, and what joy is yet, and what radically shifts once you do. So before we dive in, quick favor, if this episode sparks anything inside you, hope, clarity, or even just a little nudge to think differently, tap that subscribe button or the follow button. It helps you stay plugged in and helps someone else who needs this find this message too. And if something really hits home, don't keep it to yourself. Screenshot this episode and tag me in your social with your biggest takeaway, because I love seeing what tracks and it inspires me to do more. If you want to go deeper, grab my free Stop Working So Hard workbook and join my VI community. We are doing life-changing work together, and you don't have to do this alone. So all the links are in the show notes. Now let's jump in. Have you ever started down the path of making a big change in your life and you're all in, you're excited, you've stocked your fridge with veggies, you've set your reminders on your phone to make sure you drink water or meditate or breathe or whatever it is that you've set in place to move forward. Then, you're at it for like a day or two. And then if you're lucky, a week goes by and you start to dream about eating cookies again. And, or maybe you find yourself scrolling a little more, or life just happens and you just start losing momentum. And you might even feel yourself getting annoyed at having to do the things to make this change happen in your life. Been there? I know I have a million times, many, many times. And you may have even heard that in order to maintain progress on your goals, you have to discover your why. And it's true. When we don't stay connected to why we want to change, we do lose momentum. And then we start to feel like we're grinding, right, towards a goal without really connecting what it's for. But there is something that is even bigger than that. Because when we reconnect to joy, not the emotion, but the state, it becomes our internal compass, our quiet accountability partner, and the fuel we've been missing to stay on the path of creating the change you really want. So let me explain. Let's start with happiness. Happiness is an emotion and joy is a state. So we chase happiness in this world like it's a goal. Like, how many books have you seen and people talking about is, I would just want to be happy, how to be happy, right? Happy is not sustainable because it's not a state, it's an emotion. So if you're chasing the emotion of happiness, your life will literally be a roller coaster because it's not sustainable. And that is why it fades, right? It fades. Then we think, oh, we're such a failure because we just don't have a happy life. That's not it. Because joy is different. Joy is grounded. It's stable. It doesn't depend on the outside circumstances. And it is a state of peace. Did you get that? It does not depend on outside circumstances. And happiness does. right? Happiness is when things happen because it's an emotion. Joy is that steady state underneath. No matter what is happening, it's a state. It's a state of mind. It's a state of body. And that's really what we should be after. It's really what I think everybody is after. It's just that, when we say we want to change, we think we want to be happy. But I think what we are really, really saying is we just want to be joyful. We want to be in the state of joy most of the time. And even states, just depending on your life and how often you've been in the state of joy, sometimes it feels like we can't stay in a state, but that's okay. States last a lot longer. And the more you can stay in the state of joy, in the state of things, then it will be a lot more satisfying and will last a lot longer. Because when we forget joy, that's when change feels like a punishment. Right? As I was saying, you start a new diet and you buy all this good stuff, and then those cookies are just like calling you from somewhere. You might not even have them in the house, but you're like, oh God, remember crumble when I used to? And it feels like, oh, in order to be healthy, then I can't have this. It feels like a punishment. But it's because we don't have joy in sight. So the steps we take toward growth, they actually start to feel like burdens, right? Oh, I have to go work out. Oh, I have to get my steps in today. Oh, I have to go, I don't know, to this conference, even though I said I wanted to learn more about something, right? Oh, I have to meditate. I mean, how awful is that? And I am guilty of it. I mean, think about that. Oh, I have to meditate. Like, it's kind of dumb if you really think about it. Like all these things that you're trying to do for yourself and your body to elevate yourself and become better and to have a more joyful life. It feels like a burden. And that is when resistance kicks in. We just feel like, forget it. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. And I want to tell you that you are not lazy. This is not because you are lazy. It is not because you do not have willpower. It's because you're disconnected with the true reason for your change. And that is what joy will bring. If you understand how to make joy and feel joy in the reason for why you're doing it. Because when we remember joy, change becomes an act of self-respect. It's no longer a chore. It no longer feels so difficult. It no longer feels like a have to. It's a must, or it's a pleasure, and it's a gentle reminder of self-respect. It really becomes something that you get into, like you get to do something. You get to take a walk. I was taking a walk the other day. And I left the house and I put on this little meditation that I like to walk to. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start this in a state of joy. So as an example, I was like, you know what? And some people call it gratitude. But again, gratitude is something that you do. Joy is a state. So ingratitude is great. Ingratitude, but when getting into the state of joy, I did start with gratitude. I was like, wow, you know what? How lucky am I? I get to start this walk and I get to literally put shoes on my feet, the 2 feet that I own, that I have still on my body with 2 legs, and my body feels great walking. I'm so lucky because not everybody gets to walk, and I get to walk around a safe neighborhood and just walk, literally walk out my door. And that's a much different feeling, right? Because then I started to appreciate and become joyful in a state of being, right? Yeah. Now I'm in the state of being because I started with those gratitude statements. And that's a great way to start. And I just sat in that walk in the state of joy and wonder and looking around, just in this state of calm, peace, right? An underlying sense of joy. And it changes. It changes everything. That's much different than, oh, I have to go get my steps in, right? Do you feel that? That is a much different feeling. And so it's the reminder to start whatever you're doing in a state of joy. Because when we remember this deeper desire for a joyful life, That's what pulls you forward, right? Especially on those hard days, because you feel like pushing, right? Oh God, I got to make these calls today. But when you realize, you're like, oh my God, but this is my dream. And this is what really fills me up with joy. And I stay in this state of joy because I have this amazing business and people want what I have. And so instead of making calls for the day, right, you're just sharing with the world what you have that you know that they need. That's a very different state of being when you start your tasks. So the other beautiful thing is joy is timeless. It doesn't feel rushed. So let's go back to sales calls for a minute. Joy doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel like, oh, if this next person says no, oh, check, gotta get my 100 calls, gotta at least get one yes today, right? It doesn't feel rushed. Like the right people are coming. When they feel it and hear it, I know they're going to get it, right? Or let's even go back to weight loss or health, right? If it's a destination, a quick destination, like, okay, I got to lose 10 pounds in 2 months or whatever, it feels rushed, right? And that's just because it's goal driven. Your why is, well, I want to be healthy, or I've got a wedding to go to. Okay, great. But is it more important to go to that wedding and feel at peace when you're walking around? Because I think what happens, especially women, we're like, but I got to fit in that dress. And if I don't fit in that dress, then I'm going to be uncomfortable and then I'm going to have nothing to wear. Spiral, right? But if you start out just feeling that feeling of being at the wedding that you're going to be at in a state of joy, of just like, God, that's right, I'm just going to enjoy that, just the beauty of a wedding, the happiness, the excitement, the entertainment, the smiles, the popping of the corks, the whatever it is, music, the vows, whatever it is, that the reason that you want to go to the wedding, right? That's the true reason. It really isn't about fitting in your dress. And believe me, I am a fashion person. I know I want to fit in that dress. So don't get me wrong. It is important, but it'll be easier to get into that walk, into creating that healthful dish, creating that healthful environment, to whatever it is, creating an environment for sales calls that actually get results. You have to be in that state of joy first. And that, if you understand, that is your true why. It's the joy of whatever it is that you want, that state, that goal. Get into the joy of that, because it is timeless and it keeps you committed without needing pressure or hustle. And we are such in a pressure-driven, hustle-driven environment right now that we completely forget our focus. And when we focus on joy, the joy of the experience that we're trying to get, it settles everything down. It feels calm, it feels easier, and it doesn't feel like that hustle. So, how do you step into the state of joy? I had one little example there, because it's really important to get quiet enough to be able to hear ourself again. There is so much noise going on, whether it's news, whether it's, friends, family, all the stuff that goes on in this world. But we have to be able to quiet our minds long enough to hear what we truly want, what truly brings us joy. Because joy does not scream, right? It lives in the calm. So think of it kind of the opposite of everything else in our world that screams at us. You have to do this. Beep, 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 alarm, everything. It's time to do this. Must go. Hurry up. Da, da, da. Everything seems like it's screaming at us. And when we can take 5 minutes in stillness, it only takes a few minutes, 5 minutes. I mean, I can do it in like a minute, because once you start to get better at it, you realize you just have to just stop, disconnect, and just focus on, okay, no noise, no pressure. Put headphones in, step away from the room, breathe, no pressure. You can actually reconnect to the core of who you are when you breathe, and ask yourself, why am I doing this? What's my next step? And what is my goal? And what is the joy in that goal? Right? Ask yourself, what does it feel like to feel the satisfaction of living like you've already achieved the change? Already achieved it. And just sit there in it as long as you want. I mean, the more you can sit in that feeling that the change has already happened, it's so peaceful and it's awesome. And then you'll know how to step from that place and live from that place while you go on to your next action. Because joy isn't earned by doing more. We are such a more society, but that's not where joy lives. It actually lives in doing less. Amazingly, we're completely taught the opposite, completely. So it really arrives when your choices reflect the truth of who you really are. And that is when you get into the spirit of joy. Because in who you really are is that you after the change, right? So if you're wondering, well, I don't know who I am, think of the change that you want to be. And that is the person who you really are. And then replace one should today with a want to and see what opens up. A should, right? That's a very, very constricting kind of word. Oh, I should be eating better than this. I should be exercising right now. I should call my whoever friend. I should do a lot of things. But when you get into that state of joy, of the real purpose of why you're doing it, and you feel the calm of like, oh yeah, that's how it feels to have already made the change. Well, what do I want to do that matches? Because joy isn't the reward for changing your life. It's the reason. So here's your reminder. You're not just changing your life just to check off a box or hit a milestone. You're changing it because you want to feel more alive, more at peace, more like you. That desire for joy, it does not make you weak or soft. It's not woo-woo. It's actually your greatest strength. It's your inner knowing, and it is your quickest path to change. Please let it guide you. Because when you move from that place and you make decisions from that place and live as if from that place, change doesn't feel so hard. It starts to feel like home. So thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you tune in next week for a very, very special episode, a little treat for everyone. I'll be sharing something very close to my heart, and it has a message that every single adult needs to hear right now. So if you need a little extra joy in your life, you will not want to miss this. So remember to tap that follow button, subscribe, and tag me with your biggest takeaway. And if you want to dive in a little deeper, then let's discover what's ultimately possible for you. Grab my free workbook, join the VIP group below, or just go to ultimate180.com. You'll find all my episodes there on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your shows.